It was an interesting day for your governor on Monday when he met in Houston separately with Arab Americans and Jewish leaders. In opening remarks prior to the closed-door session with the Jewish leaders, Perry voiced his support for Israel and recounted a story from a trip there.
We had a dinner one night with a group who came in. One of them was a soldier who had lost a limb. One, a mother whose child had stepped on a mine in a orchard. This mother's halfway through telling the story about her son, and my daughter-in-law, who's a lawyer or soon-to-be lawyer, made the point, or leaned over and she said, "I did the research on this case." She works for a small Dallas firm that has been hired to follow the money, and it was a very warm reunion between two people. My faith teaches me to support Israel. I don't make any bones about that. Israel is God's chosen country. I believe that Israel has its right to be there and be a sovereign nation.
Do the Palestinians have a right to a sovereign nation?
I leave that to the leaders of the two worlds over there to work it out.
The meeting between the governor and the Jewish leaders was closed to the press, but here's someone who gave a little insight on what went on.
Concern on the textbooks that Helene also presented to the governor is the concern of making sure the textbooks are accurate. They reflect American history, they reflect world history, and a very grave concern of an Islamic influence that the three publishing houses in the United States are now using, bringing on Islamic consultants, potentially changing the accuracy of text and rewriting potentially history, or quite simply a soft jihad.
Zarlinsky also had concerns about some of the Muslim organizations that sponsored the Arab American event later in the day.
We're concerned, not necessarily the local groups, but concerned the national ties of a number of these groups. Not necessarily locally, but nationally, have ties to terrorist organizations.
So that was the background from the Jews' point of view as Perry headed over for the Arab American Voters event at which he and Democratic challenger Bill White made separate appearances. Perry shied away from any pro-Israel remarks and pretty much stayed with his standard stump speech one-liners.
Government seems to want to spend all the money.
Later, Perry was asked about Zarlinsky's remarks about Islamic influence on textbooks.
I have no reason to have knowledge of an effort like that, but here's what I did share with them, is that I have full faith that the Texas Board of Education will have the appropriate oversight and not allow for any information that's not factual to be in our textbook. Any infactual information like that, I told them don't worry about that.
And why the discussion with the Jewish group about the Middle East and no similar comments at the Arab American event?
Actually, I talked to the folks in here about living in Saudi Arabia, and I've spent a good bit of time in Saudi Arabia, and so you know, I think I'm pretty much covering all the bases there. So.
Perry lived in Saudi Arabia while stationed there with the U.S. Air Force.